Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the ImPerfect Podcast. It's strange to think that while most of us are out here existing and trying our very best, that some people would be interested and invested enough to harm, intimidate, or coerce people around them, either for personal gain or to make others look bad. It's interesting how definitely in grade school there is so much awareness and posters and everything everywhere, and advocacy for putting a stop to bullying. And then throughout our adult life, it is almost never revisited.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we experience our own form of bullying, even up until our adult lives. It's not just something that happens in school, I'm sure, as all of you have noticed. I don't think I've ever spoken to someone that hasn't experienced it, either, when they were a child or when they were an adult or both, or maybe still currently.
So today we'd like to look at bullying, specifically from when we were younger and versus experiencing forms of bullying even in our adult lives.
Yeah, bullying in grade school was almost always known as an issue or a lesson to be learned. I guess it kind of makes sense because you're in school to learn, so they do touch on that subject a lot. And when we're growing and dealing with our own bodies and how they're constantly changing, things are pretty awkward, and that's a challenging time in everybody's life. So there is also a time where we struggle to express ourselves properly, and we're looking for validation from others. So sometimes a bully might try to get in on top of the food chain, where if they're feeling a little bit oppressed or awkward with where they stand socially, often you can see that.
Yeah, well, and that seems to be the drive for a bully, right? Like, how can I get myself to the top? I'm in position 5 right now. How can I get to number 1? It's funny though, you look back at yourself, and I'm sure other people can relate. And I look back at, my grade 5 or my grade 6 photos, and I kind of laugh it off and go, oh, geez, I could have bullied myself, that's for sure. Like,
Yeah.
who put those glasses on me and who said a bowl cut was a great idea? I don't know. But yeah. Um, we both had to question though. So I remember specifically mom bringing this up to me when I was in, I think, high school, because I was in this committee myself. Does creating groups like the anti-bullying committee to bring awareness to the issue in grade school really eliminate any damage from actually being done? I remember being in these groups, like I said, and I don't know that much was even achieved other than just being the known advocates for anti-bullying. So we got to make lots of cool posters, I guess, and wear the pink shirts on Pink Shirt Day. And there are great meanings to a lot of things like that. But it was just kind of like mom looked at me and she said, so what do you guys do at the anti-bullying committee? And I remember at that age not having an answer for her. Well, we make posters and we're the advocates for anti-bullying. And to be
And
quite
you had
honest,
groups, you had guest speakers come in. I mean, I dropped off at a lot of those things. I'd like to think you.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I did go to a lot of things, a bunch of schools get together and, okay, how are we gonna narrow in on anti-bullying and what are we gonna do to make a change? But it's funny, like I don't quite remember doing a whole lot, but I guess the big question was at that time, like, is bringing attention to anti-bullying, like bringing attention to the problem really gonna solve the problem?
I think
Yeah.
they tried to give you some hands-on stuff that you could take back to the school, but it's such a big problem. And we found, even through researching, okay, let's handle this topic this week or whatever, and let's look into it. And it seems to be something that's consistent throughout life.
Yeah.
So, in some of our research, we found an author and speaker, Brooks Gibbs, suggests that there's always existing conflict because we're individuals and we all have our own thought processes, opinions, and interests. It would be naive to assume that with so many unique people and personalities that nobody's going to butt any heads. And the common denominator here is that bullies, no matter the age, when they feel threatened and needing to make themselves look larger or undefeatable, um, that's what actually entices the bullying, I guess. So it's like a win-lose game, and the bully's always trying to win and make the victim look bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think of there's many different dynamics. So even just to think about, me growing up and mom telling me to do whatever in the house, this is just a small example, but I try to talk down to her to tell her why I shouldn't be doing certain things to make myself look higher than her, even though I know that she's the boss in the house. But
That's right.
right. Well, we had a bit of a chat tonight, and I was like, I don't live here anymore. You don't have to tell me what to do. So, but it's in every dynamic of life. There's this little teasing, but there's also bullying and like this push and pull of like, who's the boss in this dynamic?
And for me, I mean, when I thinking back to when I was young, I don't recall being bullied a whole lot. It was more junior high, and that seemed to be the worst of it for me in school years anyway. And it was the girl thing, right? The frenemies and the looks, and girls are it's a whole different language, right? So
Yeah.
you don't even have to say any words or pull out the fists or that sort of thing.
Well, there's people will find anything to bully,
Hmm.
anything to make you look inferior. I always had glasses growing up. I've heard the four eyes plenty of times. I remember even specifically being bullied because I had not developed as quickly as other girls in my grade. And, that monthly visitor that every girl has, and being bullied because I hadn't gotten mine yet. Well, what kind of a joke was that? Because who really looks forward to that day to come? Well, I did, I'll tell you that much, because I was anticipating everyone else had it and I didn't have it yet. And once you get it, it's like, well, this blows. But people will find anything to make you look bad. I remember being bullied for the food I ate. I ate too healthy in school.
Right.
So pick something.
Yeah, it's too fat, too skinny, too tall, too short, too, yeah,
Yeah.
glasses, no glasses. And then suddenly, between the time I was in school and when you and my other daughter were or are in school, braces became trendy, and so
Yeah.
did glasses. And so then, if you didn't have them,
Yeah.
that meant that you could get ostracized or. But when I went to school, it was like that's the stuff you
That's
want.
not what you
So
want to do. Yeah.
it's bizarre how things can change like
And,
that.
and that's a whole other topic of fashion and what's in. Well, what was in when I was in school versus what was in when you were in school. And my sister, what's in now. If I walked in with, 80s clothes on, I'd be looked at funny, but that was anyway, lots of things. But the bottom line is that it's a win-lose game. So the bully is always trying to win by making the victim look bad. So pick something. It's an imbalance of power. So somebody is always trying to be better than somebody else.
Yeah. And what I used with you also, when you're a victim of bullying, you can learn to make a point of not getting upset, and that makes the act less exciting for the bully. And there's an actual really cool demonstration by Brooks Gibbs that shows how when one is bullying someone and all the negative comments they say about the victim get validated by the victim being noticeably upset, that in that case the bully wins. But on the flip side, when the victim acknowledges bully's comments or starts to compliment the bully has nothing to gain from that. He doesn't win anything, and he slowly starts to shut down and leave the victim alone. And you
Mm.
know, I think of my mom, even growing up with my brother, in the 70s, and my mom would, go, Mom, he's bugging me again. And which is just, if you'd stop making such a big deal about it, like pretend like it doesn't bother you. Well, it does bother me. Well, no, but I didn't understand what she was saying. But if he couldn't get a rise out of me, then it would become no fun for him.
And that carried through to when I was going through school. I anyone who knows me personally, I have larger ears than most, and I actually, in grade 8, had gotten a surgery done to have my ears formed and pulled back. Anyways, I used to get bullied quite bad in school for the size of my ears because when you're looking to find something to bully someone about, well, these ears stick out. Obviously, they're going to pick that. And I remember coming home from school and telling mom about this, and there was one specific person that just would not let it go. And mom said, well, you got to make it not bother you, or better yet, make it a joke, accept it yourself, so then they have nothing to bother you about. So we had come up with the idea. And so the next day, or whenever it was, when I went back to school and they decided, oh, well, here's my daily, gonna pick on Kennedy for her big ears. They said, oh, Kennedy, your ears are so big or whatever. And I turned and looked at them and I went, what? As if I couldn't hear them. So, and mom, great advice. That was the last time they did it to me.
Right. Because in that case, they didn't get the payoff they were looking for. The bully loses, and who wants to constantly play a game where they're losing?
Right.
And in that case, it came through for you because it wasn't fun anymore for the bully,
No,
but they ended up looking like an idiot because all the kids were laughing with you as opposed to at you, right?
right. Great joke, Kennedy. Ha ha ha. And then they look like an idiot. And
Right.
yeah, wait, you were making fun of her. That's not cool. Suddenly the dynamic changed.
Yeah.
So although the technique works well in so although this technique works well in like a grade school setting, when one becomes an adult, we still have to sometimes manage people who may be demeaning towards us, and this technique may not always work as effortlessly as it would in a grade school setting.
I
So
see it's still working though. It's worth a
it
try.
would. It would. Well, of course. It's just less of in school, you're with the same people every day. You can see it coming, but maybe work dynamic. So yeah, maybe you're right. But
Mhm.
often rumors and people talking behind your back cannot be handled in a single conversation because it is repeated. It's a repeated effort by the aggressor. So I guess the work dynamic would be like that, but I guess what we're getting at here is you kind of mature in bullying tactics, and now we talk behind people's backs and we don't just tell them flat out, and we start rumors about them and things like that.
My girls got that covered.
What's that?
My girls got that covered. But yeah, we improved. So,
Right, right,
and as adults, like even in the workplace and that sort of thing, like I think it just becomes maybe a different form
right.
than it took in high school, because you have to navigate all the inner office or work situation. Because I mean, if you risk, losing your job over it, that's kind of serious. So you almost have to become a little more sneaky, I would think.
Right. So we become more strategic, I guess, and even more so now that things have um, evolved over time. Now we have this wonderful thing called social media that kind of takes bullying to a whole other level. So there's no specific break from the bullying now. So whether you're talking in grade school, you're coming home on the bus and you get home and okay, finally, I can just rest in peace. But no, we have phones now, or you get home from work as an adult environment and okay, now I can just relax. Well, you go on social media and there you are again. So bullying doesn't just stop at school or work anymore.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with social media, like it has great purposes, but if you were meaning to bully someone, you can do that with a keystroke and hit, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of people. And
Right.
then you know, it becomes so overwhelming for the person who is actually the victim, all my friends saw that, or all my workmates saw that, or
I
yeah,
guess I was just gonna say, I guess the first form of social media, in a sense, was I remember you telling me that it became common when you were growing up that, people would call so and so and get them to say something bad about somebody else, and they'd be on the other line listening, going, I can't believe they just what? Why would you say that about me? And they don't know that they're on the other line. That's kind of maybe the intro of social media.
yeah, yeah, the beginnings of, and I can remember taking part in some of those
Oh, of
conversations.
course, yeah.
Most families, had the two lines in the house. So
Yeah.
we got to the parents' bedroom, get on the phone and call the third person who wasn't at the party or whatever, and say, after you're a little bit in, you might say, yeah, I was talking to so and so, but they did something that really bugged me. And "Oh, really, why? What happened? I don't really think I like her anymore. What do you think of her?" And you try to entice the other one to
Yeah.
like say mean things about your friend that was there with you listening on the other
Yeah,
line.
meanwhile, they're on the other line going, "All right, action. Here we go. What do you actually think of me?" Now we just have speakerphone on our cell phones and it just the whole room hears it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can remember doing that, I guess. Yes, that's definitely a form of bullying. Bullying. We didn't look at it that way then,
Oh,
but,
of course not. Well, oh, well, we're just trying to fish
and
for
I was
info.
also on the receiving end of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, according to BetterHelp.com, bullies tend to have certain categories that they fall under. And as mom and I are going through these, we kind of noticed that a lot of these categories are interchangeable. And in our experience, someone could easily be one, a couple, or a mix of all of them. So
Mhm.
they don't discriminate. Because we were going through and it's like, well, they're not specific, like they're not independent pieces. Some people are all of them or little bits and pieces. So the categories are narcissistic bullies. So these are people that are so self-involved and they lack empathy and have no fear of repercussions. So they feel like they're always above everyone else. They tend to struggle with their own self-esteem. So this is why they would tend to denigrate other people. They also feel a desire to send the loud and clear message that they are powerful or unbreakable. So, yeah, and even me saying that, I'm kind of like lifting my body. It's kind of this like puff the chest moment sort of thing, right?
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just sitting here while you were, saying your piece, and I realized that I was sitting here like this. And I thought, why am I doing that? Like that looks dumb for one. Okay. And then I, for a half a second, thought in my head, is it because I'm feeling, here I am vulnerable? Am I trying to like, be a
Make
little,
yourself look bigger, right?
well, I don't need any help making myself look
I
bigger.
meant puffing the chest.
Yes, for lack of a better term, yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's very true. And even as I'm reading it, my body started to do this. I'm like, what am I doing? But yeah,
Uh, then there's impulsive bullies. So these are the people who tend to bully sporadically, and it can especially present itself when you're under a lot of stress. And although this wouldn't necessarily be a planned or premeditated situation, it still isn't an excuse to make others feel awful. And you had shared earlier with me sometimes when you get stressed out. And
yeah,
I guess I can see myself there too, when things aren't going right and someone's in your way and you can it's so much more likely that to lash out like that.
yeah. It is like it's a perfect name, impulsive. Like it's kind of this, for me, it's when I'm stressed.
Mhm.
I'm running around, I can't, and somebody's standing there and just staring at me. And it's like, well, don't you look cute standing over there doing nothing?
Could you give me a hand?
Right. So that in itself is bullying. Like I'm pushing buttons, I'm poking the bear. And so yeah, I definitely see myself in that for sure. It's not like I set out today to make so and so feel crappy, but
Mhm.
you're just standing there. Well, I'm glad you're standing there looking pretty. Could you do something? Like it's so easy to just say those things without thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's physical bullies, and these are the people, of course, that use force or threats of force to bully someone. Also, there's situations like gritting your teeth. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and they get so angry or wound up within themselves
Yeah.
that they sit there and they talk to you like this, and like it's a threat. I mean, think of dogs, right? And that's what they, and I think that's where the instinct comes from, or saying things like you'll be sorry, or I was thinking about a situation in which somebody could potentially have a gun, and in their pocket, maybe it's just their hand in the shape of a gun that they have, but really you can't see behind that jacket pocket to know, is that a real gun, is it not a real gun? So when we gesture in those ways, like with the teeth and these threats, you're not really sure, is there really a danger there to me?
Yeah, when you brought up that kind of like metaphor in a sense, I mean, it could be a gun in a real situation for sure, but you said it so perfectly earlier with just when we were talking about this that it's a threat. So you don't know how far someone will go. So you like you said with the gun motion when it's under someone's shirt, are you going to take the chances? They're saying they're going to hurt you, but are they actually going to?
Mhm.
Don't know. So, and there's also verbal bullies. So these are bullies that are specific to using their words to belittle someone and are often passive aggressive, or as we've actually talked about in a previous episode, our just kidding episode. And we talked a lot about joking and jokes and passive aggressive jokes. It's oftentimes people will say jokes that aren't actually jokes. There's some truth behind them. So it can be so easy for these people to ruin people's reputations, careers, inner self-worth, like their self-esteem, anything. So these are the bullies that are famously known for spreading rumors and gossiping behind someone's back.
Yeah, I sure have been on the receiving end of that. And recently, just within the past couple of years, I've heard various reports back of something that happened a few years ago, where someone got up and publicly said something about me, which I had no knowledge of that they even said. And of course, to make it worse, it was untrue, but these things get repeated back to you eventually. And I just think, no.
Even years later, like, and rumors just perpetuate and turn into things, and somehow we end up over here and it's something that isn't even true. And we
Right.
live in a small village, and so things can spread fast. And so meanwhile, these people think these certain things of you because they heard it. And what do you do with that, right? Well, it's not true. And unless they ask you or confront you about it, they consistently think this is true about you.
Well, and that's the worst part, is by the time I heard it, it had been said a few years previous, and I was like, wait a second, what
Right.
has this been going around? Like, and then you start to wonder, is that why the person in the grocery store that we used to be friendly, walk by and turned the corner before they didn't make eye contact, and then you can get in your head a little bit about that. Maybe it's just that they didn't see me that day, but then it causes you to question even people that you've never met, maybe that you've never had that opportunity to meet and make friends with, are already having a preconception of you or your personality. So
Right. And
be
again, if they, unless they straight up ask you about it,
right,
how are
right,
they to know anything different about you? Oh, this is the only thing I know about Kathy.
right.
And I
Right.
don't talk to Kathy, so
Yeah.
I guess she's a whatever. Also, I think Buddy on the train behind your house is going a little crazy on the horn. I was like, okay, he's only gonna do it once or twice. No, he did it like 5 times.
Yeah. So at the show, we have secondary bullies, and these are the people who are often the bystanders, and they either don't say anything or they may even start to participate in the bullying, so as not to jeopardize their own reputations. Maybe an insult is thrown and they kind of chuckle, just, sort of in agreement with the bully, but not standing up for the
Mm,
friend, what have you, the victim.
mhm.
And these people tend to be too scared to speak out, or they're concerned as coming off as a tattletale, or yeah, I think in that case it can be difficult sometimes to speak up and defend the victim because it might be an unpopular opinion.
Hmm. Hmm. And there's often times too that people will try to buddy up with the aggressor or the bully. I've noticed this before that they'll try to become friends because I don't know, maybe they're intimidated, maybe they're scared that they're going to get picked on themselves. Maybe there's privileges involved. But yeah, like sometimes these people, it's not even with bad intentions. It's just like, it's fight or flight mode. And hey, I just want to like be on your best what am I trying to say here? On my best behavior around you because I don't need you to make fun of me either. Yeah. So for some reason it seems that we tend to only talk about bullying in childhood as we mentioned, but after looking at many different resources, it actually appears that there isn't necessarily a difference between adults or children bullying or getting bullied.
Mm.
So, although awareness is important, often focusing in on the problem almost makes it bigger. So, as we mentioned before, the anti bullying committee, um, I don't know that it necessarily, I mean, it's great to have awareness. It's great to have groups and people that other like your peers know that they can come and talk to you because you're a safe space, but um oftentimes like focusing in on a problem, like it's not going to make the problem go away. I'm trying to think of an example here. So like um if you say a negative versus a positive of something, how can I word that better, Mom? Maybe you have a better way of saying that.
I think you said it well when you said focusing on the problem often does make it a bigger problem, and you're kind of turning all eyes towards it. And I just think the more, in my personal opinion, since all of these anti-bullying campaigns have come up, like you raised the question in the beginning, has it actually done anything? We've brought focus to it, we've brought awareness to it, which is good. But at the same time, is it actually preventing it? Is it actually, there's all these policies, but you still hear crazy amounts of kids reporting this and crazy amounts of frustrated parents saying, like, I thought you guys had policies on this, but nothing's being done. So I don't
Yeah.
know. When I went to school, we just, if someone had an issue with someone else, there was a gathering out back after school, and it was all sorted out. And that was the end of that.
Yeah, well, it's like again revisiting Brooks Gibbs. It's he made a great point about just how everybody is unique, and for us to be naive and thinking that everyone being so different and so unique and all having our own interests and all our own aspirations, and we all look different, we're shaped different, we enjoy hanging out with different people. Like, who are we to believe that bullying can someday be non-existent? Like, in my head, that doesn't make sense with his point.
Right.
So,
So if it's a continuing issue for since basically the beginning of time,
right.
should maybe the direction should be in conflict resolution skills instead
Yeah.
of campaigns and policies that I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's kind of like maybe this isn't working. So perhaps looking at a different alternative, like to change the focus uh,
Hmm.
of what they're focusing on.
Right. So that's similar to as well. That makes me think of I had a tattoo covered up and reworked, I guess. Um, and I remember when the setup of the appointment and everything was happening, I was talking to the tattoo artist and I was trying to be creative. Well, this is kind of shaped like a starfish. So if we kind of reworked it so it looks like an ocean scene. And he's like, well, do you want an ocean tattoo? And I'm like, well, I do love the ocean. But it wasn't actually something I wanted. So his point was with cover ups, the way that where people go wrong with cover-ups and where tattoo artists go wrong is that they try to rework what is already there. But instead, if you can change the focus, so you're not looking at the negative tattoo of something you don't want people to pay attention to. Stop drawing attention to that by, redoing those lines and reworking it and trying to make it look weird or different, but it might still look strange because it's not exactly how you would have done it the first time. He said, let's just start afresh. And we do it on top of the old one. So we change the focus. So then when somebody's looking at, there's a part on my back on the cover up, oh, well, you're looking at this bird and they don't even notice that little line over there that was from the previous tattoo. So it's a good metaphor to think, just like changing your focus. Don't pay attention to the negative. Reset your focus to something positive instead.
I think we can't turn a blind eye to it, but yes, I think people
It's still there.
hear where we're going with this.
It's still there.
Yeah.
But let's focus on the positive rather than revisiting the negative all the time.
Right. So if you've experienced bullying and it's something that is repeatedly impacting your life, don't be ashamed to ask for help, of course. And in today's society, there's many online options for therapy that can be affordable or even free. And making an investment in yourself is never a waste of money or time.
Yeah. And even speaking to a friend or family member you trust can help you gain insight and share your emotions without judgment. And no matter the time in your life, it is always beneficial to have a support system. It's a major deterrent when others are around you, so the bully will be less likely to approach you or target you.
Yeah. In conclusion, people who bully are intimidated by you and your abilities. You need to remember that when you're being a target. They know how threatening you are to their own success, so try to take their comments, let them roll off a little easier, and almost take them as a compliment because they are actually seeing you as a threat. I know that's hard, like when somebody's saying mean things directly to you, but just keep in perspective that they're targeting you because they see you as a threat.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to knock you down if you weren't above them, is kind of what you have to think of. So you should never look, and the big thing is you never look good trying to make others feel bad. And the irony is it actually makes you look worse. So why is it even happening in the first place? And
other people around, I think, see what goes on, and the bully might be feeling super powerful, but meanwhile everybody's like, buddy, you're a jerk,
and it's tense. Everyone knows it's not right. So yeah. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We really appreciate you coming back every week to listen to our podcast, and we will see you next Monday.
Bye.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.